On January 3, 1970, what remained of the Beatles gathered for their last recording session together. They needed to finish a song already featured in the Let It Be film, which the upcoming album was missing. John Lennon wasn't there. Officially, he was on holiday, but by then, he had already left the group. The song to be recorded was a George Harrison composition, and hidden in the tapes of the Get Back sessions, filmed a year before, lies a revealing truth. At Twickenham Studios, George was filmed as he played his new song to Ringo.
Do you want to hear the song I wrote last night?
Okay. Everything else, acoustic.
It's just a very short one. It's called I Me Mine.
When he played it for the others, he sounded almost indifferent, no longer expecting much from his bandmates.
I don't care if you don't want it. I don't give a fuck. It's going to be musical.
Further into the session, George, Ringo, and Paul worked through the song, while John, apparently losing interest, waltzed around the studio with Yoko Ono. 2 days later, complaining of criticism from Paul and frustrated by the project overall, George walked out and quit the band.
I think I'll be leaving the band now.
When?
Now.
I just thought, well, what's the point of this? I thought I'm quite capable of being relatively happy on my own, and I'm not able to be happy in this situation. You know, I'm getting out of here. It was just a very, very difficult, stressful time, and to be, even under pressure, being filmed, having a row as well. So that's what happened. I just got up and I thought, well, I'm not doing this anymore.
The whole pressure of it finally got to us. So instead of, like people do when they're together, they start picking on each other.
George was getting a lot of independence for himself in those days. He was writing more. He wanted things to go his way, where when we first started, they basically went John and Paul's way.
After a tense 5-hour meeting on January 15th, George finally returned. Filming and recording for Get Back resumed in the Apple basement. At the end of the month, they performed the legendary rooftop concert. I Me Mine was not part of the live set and was not recorded during these sessions.
It was more difficult for me then to, get in there to do it. It was the way the Beatles took off with Paul and John's songs, and it made it very difficult for me to get in.
The Get Back sessions ended on January 31st. With filming complete, the project was shelved, and engineer Glyn Johns was left to compile a live album from the raw, unedited tapes. The album's release would be repeatedly delayed throughout 1969, in the middle of business conflicts and creative differences. With the Get Back project shelved, the Beatles regrouped at Abbey Road. This time, under the supervision of George Martin. They booked Studio 2 for July and August to work on a new album.
We had been very unhappy during Let It Be. Let It Be was a miserable experience. And I never thought we would get back together again. And I was quite surprised when Paul rang me up and said, we all want to make another record. Will you produce another one for us?
By the end of August 1969, the recording sessions for the Abbey Road album were concluded. Shortly after, John Lennon informed the others that he was leaving the group.
I wanted the Beatles thing to end. I felt as though I couldn't breathe if it went on any longer. And also it was sort of dying, We were no longer enjoying it.
Just a few days later, on September 26th, Abbey Road was released. It was an enormous commercial success, even as the public remained unaware the Beatles had already broken up. In late 1969, as the Get Back film was edited for release and renamed Let It Be, a rough cut was assembled. The film editors kept the Twickenham scene of John and Yoko waltzing, which meant the soundtrack album needed a real recording of I Me Mine.
And that film sequence was quite nice, you see, so they wanted to keep that sequence in the film, but I hadn't really recorded it in Apple with the rest of the songs, so they had to go in the studio and re-record it.
Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr regrouped at EMI Studios without John Lennon. Although I Me Mine was considered a filler track, it meant something more to George. His autobiography, published in 1980, would be named after the song, and he stood by its philosophical sentiment.
I Me Mine, I kept coming across the words I, me, and mine in books about yoga and stuff. I mean, about the meaning of life and the difference between the ego and the soul, the real you and the you that people mistake their identity to be this bag of flesh and bones. And that's really it. I, me, and mine is all ego orientation.
They worked long into the night, recording 16 takes of the rhythm track, acoustic guitar, bass, and drums, with a guide vocal from Harrison. Before take 15, George delivered a mock statement containing a reference to Lennon's absence.
You all will have read that Dave D's no longer with us, but Mickey and Titch and I decided to carry on the good work that's always gone down in number 2.
With the backing track done, they layered on overdubs. Then, on this very last session, they did an instrumental jam. George led them through a version of Buddy Holly's Peggy Sue Got Married. Even as the band was falling apart, for a moment, they were just teenagers again, playing the music that had first brought them together. I Me Mine holds a secret of its own. The song is officially credited to George Harrison, but rewind to January 1969 and the tapes tell a different story. During rehearsals at Twickenham Studios, the same sessions filmed a year earlier for Get Back, Paul McCartney can be heard actively jamming with Harrison, helping shape the song's heavier, rocking middle section. On the spot, they wrote a 12-bar blues segment that shifted the song from a minor key to major, with George and Paul layering in vocal harmonies.
Try that bit, going down. That sounds like it'd be a good sort of rock bit, but it gets out of the idea of the waltz.
Paul's suggestions, which made up the chorus on the final recorded version, are evidence of an uncredited co-writing of I Me Mine. I Me Mine shows McCartney collaborating with Harrison, in rehearsals in 1969 and in the studio a year later, to finish the last song the Beatles put to tape.
We didn't underestimate George. We knew that he was peaking, as we got to those records.
His talents have developed over the years, and he was working with 2 fucking brilliant songwriters. And maybe it was hard sometimes for him, because Paul and I are such egomaniacs.
It seems fitting that a song about the ego was the final recording by the Beatles, who, by 1970, had all but disintegrated into bitterness, with its members wanting quite different things from life.
No one's frightened of saying it. Everyone's playing it. It's coming on strong all the time.